Hi guys! Today I want to talk about The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This is an adult sci-fi, I believe. I really don't understand the differences between young adult and all of that. To me, young adult will mean a young adult, but young adult apparently is also teens, so I really don't know. But I think this is adult. The protagonist, if you can call her that, is 23 years old, so, you know, make of that as you will. The rest of the crew is older. This is a sci-fi novel, as you can maybe tell by the stars on the cover. I'm really bad at summarizing these things. I took notes, but I might have to read them off just because I can't remember them for the life of me. But we're following an interspecies crew in the future in a tunneling ship. They have a big job that they have to travel a long time for, which, you know, a long way. And on the way, different things happen to different crew members, or to the entire crew. We're following different characters, some more often than others, and I would say this is more character driven than plot driven. We really get to know all of the crew at some point, and it feels a bit like episodes where we don't really know how much time has passed, but it doesn't really matter. We just sort of jump in again when something of importance happens, because this essentially happens over the course of a year, I would say. I don't really know. They have a different way of counting time, obviously, because it's intergalactic, different species, different worlds they experience, so they have a different way to calculate time, so I really can't tell. I haven't quite figured that out. It's also quite slow-paced, which I think somewhat comes along with being more character-focused. I don't know a lot of these terms, so maybe I described it wrong. If I did, like, please point it out. So, I want to talk about some positives and some negatives. The first thing that I noticed was that it took me quite a long time to sort of get into the book. At first I didn't like our main character, or the person we were first introduced to and we return to quite a lot, but I understand that she's somewhat of a gateway for us to understand all of what is going on, because she's also new to this entire world of intergalactic travel and all of these exciting things that she gets to experience, so it makes sense. It took me a while to get into it, and at first I didn't like her, but at the end I didn't mind at all and quite liked everything. There were no obvious plot holes. So at times, actually, there were things where I was like, that seems like they didn't really explain that. And then right at that moment, there was a part in the book where they were like, oh, by the way, this thing is connected to this, and this is why. And I really liked that, because it felt like I was really, you know, taken by the hand and guided through this new world that we get to learn about. On the note of that, I really like the world building. It's a beautiful world. I really like the spaceship from what it sounded like. I don't know, I really wanted to be there. I really like the characters as well. Most of them are quite likable. You know, of course they have their differences, but I think you also somewhat get to understand where they're coming from. I think by the end of the book you have an idea of what each character has gone through and what sort of reasoning they may have and why that is. I also like that it addressed stuff like colonialism and pronouns in a very, what to me felt sort of an organic way, and it was just like something that the characters were aware of. It wasn't a big discussion about if something like that even exists. It was just sort of stated, and I really like that, because I found that quite comforting, the idea that in the future pronouns and stuff like that is not a big deal. It's just something people are aware of, and you don't have to really argue about it anymore, which, yeah, I don't know, I found very comforting. It also presents different relationship models and family models, which was really cool, with different species on the ship, so they have very different cultures. I don't know, I really liked it. There is LGBTQ representation, but it's definitely not the focus, so if you're really looking for a book that, like, you know, talks about it and it's like very present, that's not quite it, but it does treat it in a very casual way. It's not a big deal. I really like the writing style. I really like the descriptions. It also touches on, or opens for, moral or philosophical discussions, which I personally enjoy, especially because in sci-fi you are in a completely different context. You can think about them in a different way, or sort of step outside and view the picture from a bit of distance and consider it from a new perspective. To me, that's really great. So within the humans on the ship, there's also racial diversity. It's not super specific, but again, something that I think is just quite comforting to know that there's a character that might look like you, or, you know, I think especially in sci-fi, you often don't have that. I think especially sci-fi classics, just because they're quite old. So, in conclusion, some things took getting used to, but overall, I thought it was a great world. It had great world building, and the science in the world itself was sound. I think it handles a lot of topics very well, as I said, colonialism, ethnocentrism, is that how you say it? I don't know, but that, sexuality, racial diversity, different sort of family models, all of that I found very well encompassed in the story without being too glaringly obvious. I think I had a bit different expectations. I expected it to be a little less character-driven and more plot-driven. I think because that's what a lot of sci-fi is usually, which doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy this. I absolutely did. And it's really good that there's something else out there. To me, it felt a lot like episodes, like at the end, like if I would have to suggest a sort of adaptation of it, I would suggest a TV show, just because that would make so much more sense for the timing and the spacing and sort of the episode like structure of what happens in the book. Of course, there's like a theme going through all of it, and like sort of, you know, you have an end objective, all of that, but I think it would fit very well into a TV show setting, at least like a short series or something like that. So I would say I actually like it more looking back, because at the beginning I just had different expectations, but now I'm like, yeah, it's a comforting world, and it's described beautifully, and it has likable characters, and then everything's good. I mean, you know, in a reread I might realize that there are some things that I didn't enjoy, but so far I'm quite positive about everything, I would say. Lastly, I should just say I mentioned this in an earlier video before, this was actually the first novel I read after starting reading again, so I really hadn't read any sort of novel for years, and it is very likely that some of my thoughts on it are due to it being the first thing I read, so I don't have a lot of comparison. If I was ever able to critique stuff, I don't think I was that good at it as a child, so I have to train those muscles first, so take that with a grain of salt, but those are sort of my impressions. Yeah, I really enjoyed The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I don't really give like stars and stuff like that, I don't know, but I think I would, if I would have to, I would give it a 4 or 4.5, probably. Yeah, I think so. Just because, I don't know, I still don't have a 5-star read in anything that I've read so far. I think I'm still waiting for something that really like grabs me to give 5 stars to. So, but maybe this will change. So yeah, but this was sort of my first review-ish type thing, and I hope you enjoyed. I'm gonna keep reading, hope you are too, and I'll see you next week. Bye!